another video by Blitzbangs. It was a really cool why video game reports are good, which sound like a very plausible theory. I have my own take on the topic just from the title, but I haven't quite as yet decided where he's going with it, so I'm actually curious.
Growing up playing
as he does have some fucking insane video game takes, but majority I think are pretty actually sound for a crazy, I want to say drunken Australian because I associate drunkenness with Australians, but I don't know if he drinks. There's that fun fact.
video games, you start noticing
And also, sorry, Australians.
this ongoing pattern being abused
But it's your own fault.
quite a lot in the industry, which is game developers simply copying the base idea of a certain popular video game and creating
This also looks so shit, so blown up. Mario Kart 64. Oh, we've got enhanced bitrate, bitches.
their own different version of it. This strategy, while being very shameless and scummy without a doubt, has still somewhat proved itself to be very much worthwhile and successful throughout the years, as all it truly did at the end of the day was grab something that was already known.
Like, in fairness, sometimes, I know you're showing games that executed super well on the idea, being Mario Kart and Mega Man. Also, wouldn't Metroid have been the first Metroidvania? Also, don't know if Mega Man is a Metroidvania. Yeah, but anyway. Sometimes, like, games don't execute that well on idea, and other people can get a hold of it and execute it a lot better. Which sometimes I think kind of makes sense.
To be greatly successful, and in some rare case scenarios,
But just sometimes games are old. Sometimes mechanics and ideas become outdated just because the game is old. And we've had more progression in terms of technology, game development, and understanding.
made it somehow even better. Tekken was a straight-up rip-off of the Virtua Fighter franchise. Genshin Impact completely stole ideas and the art style of Breath of the Wild, and
I feel like art style's a bit of a... The fuck do I change one frame? I know there's a button for that. I don't know what the button is. I feel like art style's a bit of a stretch. This is very much more anime than this, like... I know this is... I don't know if I'd go art style. They both feel kind of similar but distinct. This just seems very anime-esque. I feel like you can find 1,000 games, MMOs or whatever, that have this exact, like, very anime-esque art style.
Breath of the Wild, and Palworld made a game so good it riled Nintendo angry enough to actually go out of their way to try suing them. It's been
I don't know, Pokemon mods for Palworld exist for a reason.
proven time and time again that copying already existing game concepts can lead into other great games, which is confusing since something I personally never really understood was the sheer hatred and distaste towards this very subject from the gaming community.
I kind of agree with that take.
For some reason, it's been somewhat normal.
Not kind of, I genuinely do. That's kind of where I was going with it, but I want to see what he has to say first before I basically probably agree with him and say his whole concept for his video idea. I'll make myself look like a complete idiot. Either way.
To make fun of new upcoming games for being too similar to titles that already exist, which I find quite ironic because they're probably the same people who dick ride anything that comes out of From Software as they continue to play the endless supply of regurgitated Souls-like games non-stop. Anyways, my point is,
That does not look good when it was cycling past.
Welcome more game developers to straight up steal and copy from one another, as it not only benefits the game community by providing us with more games to play, but also adds an extra layer of choice and more variety of the specific game genres we already thrive in. League of Legends and Dota 2, both games that I hold
as a Dota 2 streamer, I was waiting for him to bring it up.
very
Or
close
content creator or whatever. Also, as in Bliss's own, I'm pretty sure he's also still a big League fan. I don't know if he plays much League anymore.
and dear to my heart, as well as the Garbage Disposal, are two games that share a lot of similarities when it comes
Only really fun with friends. Worst gaming communities, definitely. Biden's team doesn't even play the game.
down to the core
Will enhance your... I feel like no true thing has ever been said. You've never learned how to play in Russian quicker than playing Dota 2 on European servers.
fundamentals and integrity of the MOBA genre. But as time goes on, they've only but grown farther and farther apart, cementing themselves as an individually unique experience.
I actually kind of agree with that. They're the same gameplay concept in terms of what needs to be accomplished, in terms of like basic gameplay loop. So, you know, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4's base, whatever. That whole basic fucking map. But they're so different in terms of how they execute it on and with their own different mini objectives and stuff like that. I feel like, yes, it's the same game. the same gameplay loop, the same general gameplay idea, but executed very differently, with also, fair enough, completely different art styles. And art styles fucking matter. There's some people that won't play any FPS game that doesn't seem hyper realistic. I'm speaking about a specific person I know in my personal life. But yet, some of the best FPS games or shooters in general aren't really following that.
League becoming the much faster-paced, casual, and dumbed-down version of the original, whereas Dota suited more towards players who enjoy the hardcore.
I don't know how this is going. I do not want to comment and enrage millions of people.
Lower pace and strategic aspects of the game. The amount of posts I see online, and even some personal friends of mine that have stated their interest of moving from one game to the other, is uncountable, as both games offer very different experiences despite being very much the same in more ways than one.
Well, that's the thing, is I feel like, okay, sometimes always play Dota 2. I think we tried League like fucking for one weekend. It's so different that yes, your understanding of how the game works and the general goal of the game translates, but fucking nothing else. Like, so many mechanics are different. So many, yes, you still right click to move and right click to attack and fucking QWERT for abilities and whatever bullshit, or however you bind them in fairness. But items, team comp, heroes, it's still such different games, even though they have the same basic gameplay loop. It's the same as, oh, I know how FPS works, I'll be good at every FPS.
Similar things can also be said about yet another set example.
Valorant and CSGO.
Both these respective companies, Valorant and Counter-Strike. 2. I keep forgetting to say 2. Do people even call it that? Valorant and...
Oh, okay, sorry, Counter-Strike 2. I still said CSGO.
Counter-Strike are even more so similar to each other than League and Dota is in the aspect of being a team-based tactical shooter, sharing a lot of the same elements and in-game mechanics such as counter-strafing, recoil control, and utility usage. Yet even despite their similarities, have built up very different communities.
And I mean, even when he speaks about utility usage, there's such different forms of utility. And once again, art style. I think it's something we don't, as a person that doesn't really care about a game's art style, I can't be that bothered if it's hyper realistic, if it's fucking anime, well, if it's anime better, big titty bitches, but that's not the point. I feel like it's so hyper focused on art style doesn't matter. It matters to a lot of people. A lot of people will look at a game and think it looks pretty. Art style attracts me. I'm going to play it. And I think that is a big factor. A lot of, especially, I want to say older gaming community still cares that, oh, a game must look real or seem real. They don't want like the hyper stylized cartoonish aspects, I want to say, of Valorant. I don't actually know what you would really consider the hyper stylized effect. And I think in the same way, almost appealing to a younger community, it also might appeal more to a younger community, being that hyper stylized style rather than just this, oh, gritty, realistic looking shooter. Also, ageability. A hyper stylized aesthetic will have much more longevity because it's not meant to look like anything that we can have a reference point view. Because it's so hyper stylized, you won't be able to then come out with the new fucking COD that makes the old COD look like shit because it looks so much more realistic. It's supposed to be hyper realistic. If it's that hyper stylized style, it's timeless almost, because it is that very same aesthetic. It's not trying to mimic realism, it's trying to mimic that specific style it's going for, which I think is also sometimes not taken into account. And I think a lot of games also relying on that for longevity, especially live service games or competitive games like Dota, League, fucking Marvel Rivals currently also going for a much more I know it is comics, so comics have a stylized aesthetic to them, but it makes, I think, the longevity in terms of that a lot better. And you don't have to worry as much about consistently patching and updating the fidelity of the graphics, which also you can't necessarily do, if I'm right, or only up to a certain extent, if I'm right. I don't actually know.
With very distinct tastes. Valorant being more catered towards fanboys and egos who actually want to play the game.
You gotta love that he's being such a condescending, sarcastic cunt. People probably get so upset about this.
Stop it. And Counter-Strike catering more so towards underage gambling addicts. These are some of the
I wonder how many people actually got upset by those statements.
many reasons why I think game copying is genuinely a...
Yeah, I mean, what, this TF2? Actually, no, this isn't TF2. This might be Team Fortress, or what the fuck is this in Chinese or Japanese? I'm actually not sure what that is.
Not just for the players to be able to...
That's definitely a TF2 a TF ripoff, I'm guessing.
To find their communities and homes, but also for the gaming industry to grow exponentially. But on top of all that, my absolute favorite part about game copying is when game developers blatantly rip off of existing games of companies who genuinely deserve it, since the developers have ultimately just given up on not only
I have a phone. I would just like to say I do have a phone. It's currently on the table right next to me. I have a phone, Blizzard. If you're willing to shell out some money, I have a phone.
their community, but also on themselves. I'm of course talking about Marvel Rivals and Overwatch. Two. God damn it. I keep forgetting. Bro, why do they keep doing this? It doesn't work. I think
Also, kind of agree. Fucking 2 being pointless.
it's safe to say that Blizzard has just been constantly getting away with it for far too long, with their beloved game Overwatch being on top of the team-based hero shooter category for a very, very long time.
I also think they've never really had much in terms of competition. And when I say competition, I don't necessarily mean in terms of quality of game. I think there were very good team shooters out there, team-based shooters out there. But in terms of funding, development, and things like that, whatever tends to have a lot of funding behind it, a lot of motivation behind competitive scene, behind the possibility of turning pro, often helps fund a game and create a bigger player base. Whatever has a bigger player base seems more fun to play because it's what people are playing. Games are fast and fun and more competitive, which is something we completely overlook. Is there's some great games with bad player bases. You just don't buy them or don't play them because it's not competitive. I mean, when I was playing Siege, not that Siege doesn't have a big enough player base to be competitive, I was playing South African servers originally where such a small amount of people play that the games aren't competitive, especially in something that's so high skill cap like Siege or like an Overwatch, that if there isn't a big enough player base, games aren't competitive. And if games aren't competitive, they aren't fun. No one likes just being put into, whether it's you stomping 5 games in a row, it's not fun because it's not challenging. And we kind of want to be challenged. But yeah, I also feel like that's also why Overwatch did so well. I mean, you had Paladins that tried for a while that I thought was phenomenal. I really enjoyed Paladins. Rip high res and Paladins. I think the servers are officially shut now. But I think that was the bigger one. I could be wrong. But like they just didn't have the funding around it to build such as big of a competitive scene and do as much marketing. Along with having no real RP, like even with Marvel Rivals, look, I think there's a competitive scene coming. I don't know. But the game is fun. And the game has a massive IP that is trending so heavily in like modern media that I think even if the game was shit, it would still have a massive player base.
Multiple game titles have tried
Hey, and we just spoke about Paladins.
time and time again attempting to dethrone it, but to no avail. Despite Blizzard's controversial decision making and the massive uproars of their unhappy community, Overwatch has somehow managed to stay on top, with not really any sort of competition in their sights. Until one day.
Also think at that era, this is a hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take. It's a weird take. I think in general, a lot of the gaming population is becoming less competitive. And when I say less competitive, I don't mean there aren't people that want to play competitive games. I think a lot of people are more reliant on what game is fun to play that they can be competitive at. So before, especially that was like late, that was pre-COVID vibes still, when I think Paladins was at its peak. We were so focused on what had the most player base, what rank could I get to, what game is going to be in the most competitive feeling. And that meant bigger player base, better game. And I think nowadays it's no longer, I mean, it was very normal back then to speak about the competitive side of games, is in terms of, oh, what game's got the best competitive side. Like you would speak about what games gives you, not what game is fun, what game is competitive. So you could see how well you could do or what rank you could get up to and feel good about beating other people, which still feels good, but hey. Whereas nowadays we focus so much more on a game just being fun. And I mean, there's been other multiplayer games that almost not having competitive around that same era or having a competitive mode or being a competitive mode added in later almost killed them. Because people weren't didn't feel as fulfilled playing like a quick play or a quick match or, you know, a pub, and not being able to have that big competitive drive behind the game. And I feel like that's kind of dying out now, where it's more games are just like, what's fun to play? What do I enjoy playing? And less about what's the most competitive. Where can I get the best quality of a competitive experience? Where can I test myself? But yeah, that's maybe just my take on that.
Marvel Rivals is a game I never thought I'd get myself into, but I can safely say that now that I've tried it, I've been grinding this game nonstop and I can't stop playing it. Please, God, help me. I think I speak
I kind of feel like that's happened to a lot of the world right
for
now.
a lot of people when I say none of us really expected this game to take off this much. Gaining over
No, I expect this to be just a flash in the pan, like most hero or comic IP games just don't really ever take off. Or they're popular for like 2-3 months and then they just die.
20 million registered users in just the first week, with around 350,000 concurrent players just on Steam alone. I mean, it's got it
That's
all.
fucking
Satisfying
insane.
combat, great visuals, brain-dead characters for when you suck at aiming, and dare I say it, this makes you feel like you're playing Overwatch in the good old
Well, we need to suck at aiming at some
days
points.
all over again. And who would have thought that all it took was any other game company other than the creators of Overwatch to make that happen? And
I think we all kind of expected that, in fairness.
even the one thing Overwatch is especially known for, Marvel Rivals hits right back at them. I mean, just look at Psylocke, man. God damn! Call me crazy,
I mean, not wrong.
but I honestly think game copies are not only great, but are in fact somewhat needed. Because without them, game developers like Blizzard are able to get away with so much.
I agree. It also breeds competition, and sometimes... Wait, let me finish and then I'll go on my
Abusing their
rant.
communities with lies to upcoming updates, terrible game changes, and ridiculously overpriced cosmetics. Developers should always strive to make their games as fun as possible, no matter what. But when you get too comfortable, sometimes all you need is a little bit of a
That's completely true.
wake-up call. Marvel Rivals didn't just make a good copy of Overwatch. They made sure to show Blizzard what Overwatch could have been if you actually tried.
I feel like that sounds slightly personal from him. I don't know if he was a massive Overwatch fan. That seems like a very depressive title. I'm assuming that's the end of the that's the end of the stream. At the end of the video, I don't see much else. Oh yeah, she's Archer. So my whole take that I was trying to get at is I also think, one, it breeds competition, which is great. I think a big reason Dota and League have been so consistently updated is because they've had the other two to push each other. Like, if there is a risk of losing your player base, and by extension, losing your income, your company, blah, 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 you will try make a better game and improve your game. You're going to keep churning out content, keep trying to improve, which I think is just good for everyone. But also, sometimes ideas aren't always executed phenomenally well. Sometimes an idea can be phenomenal, but it just wasn't executed to the best of how it could have been. I mean, there's certain games that I feel like are part of a genre that redefine a genre once they are released or after they're released. I mean, there's certain games that redefined what a genre is about. I mean, you've got shit like Hollow Knight. That's everyone's... Okay, I've never played Hollow Knight. I'm not a big Metroidvania guy. Fucking too dumb to be able to play them. But like, when a lot of people think that redefined the Metroidvania landscape, it also took inputs from Souls-like, from the Dark Souls genre and from soft games, which then again, for a lot of people, made the experience better. And sometimes even if it's not a direct rip-off, but taking certain mechanics and certain ideas can improve other games when you're not trying to compete with that exact genre or that exact game that defined the genre. I mean, there's 1,000 games now that are, I don't want to call them Souls-like, but have taken inspirations from Dark Souls, like the Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order games, that they've taken inspiration from the Souls-like games. But I don't feel like at any point do they feel like you're playing a Dark Souls experience or a FromSoft game. It just takes certain elements that they use that they think work well in terms of making a game have higher stakes to it, that then improve that game. And I think often it's cool sometimes to take these ideas and instill them into your game and we consider them ripoffs without really thinking about if the game is better or if the game is worse. Also, just time sometimes. I mean, I know I spoke about Metroidvanias, but they fuck old. Castlevania was before I was born. I'm claiming. I actually have no idea when it came out, but it's fuck old. So being able to use modern game design, modern games just improve the genre, I also think is a great thing. I don't think we said as, oh, it's a ripoff. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. I think I agree with him that it's just such good. It's so good for games in general. One, creating competition, and two, just sometimes improving on concepts or taking a concept from a game that had a cool idea that didn't execute the concept well, but could be executed a lot better by other people or other games. I'm sure there's 1,000 there that I can't think of any off the top of my head right now, because most times their genre-defining game is still relatively modern in my mind. But it's kind of like, I suppose, original Dota All-Stars versus League, Hon, whatever, Dota 2. They're all such massive improvements from the original, and I don't think you can compare them almost at any level. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. That was a cool video. I'm going to link it in chat. I'll link it also down in the description below. Give it a like. Follow your boy Blitzbanks. Really cool content creator, especially if you like Dota. It has some great stuff coming out. But yeah, I think it's time we jump into some games.